Okay, good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. This is the January 19th regular meeting of the Darien, Connecticut Parks and Recreation Commission. Calling the meeting to order, we do have a quorum. First order of business is to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which was December 15th. Let's get those right in front of me. And I will look up and see if people have any proposed corrections or clarifications. Anybody?
I have one.
Cara?
Yes, I have one clarification. On the last page where it had how people voted for the three motions, if I was reading it correctly, I think it had me abstaining from the capital vote, but voting yes on the operating budget. But I thought that I voted, or what I intended was I abstained from the operating budget and voted yes for the capital budget.
Okay, I probably just flipped it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks.
Of course.
Hi, it's Kathy. I'm sorry not to be on camera, but my other computer crashed today.
Okay.
So I had one change in the top of page 3, and I'm sorry about my dog. I think I discussed that each park, it's not each park, some of the parks have ADA and accessibility requirements. Not all the parks have ADA and accessibility requirements. I don't want that necessarily to be a requirement.
Okay, so, that's the top of page 3. Okay.
Each
park accessibility. Okay.
So discuss some of the parks ADA accessibility.
Yeah, I would just put some. We don't have to specify, but I didn't want it to be implied that all the parks had to be ADA accessible because the nature preserves don't.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, and the sentence right above that, Jamie, it says the sentence starts with Cara's last name. It says comments submitted for reach. I think that should have been each.
Yes, ma'am. I saw it when you said that. Thank you. Sorry.
Anybody else? Cara moved. See, she was down there. Now she's up here. She's so confusing. Anybody else? No. The only thing that struck me, there's one other correction. Bottom of page 3, it says the commission also discussed extensively ensuring the budget and standards of cars were aligned. Maybe I think it should be also extensively discussed. I think those two words should be flipped. But then the other thing I noticed is on page 2 in the discussion about the new gazebo proposal, it says that the commission felt strongly that awareness of the neighbors should be considered. I don't know, the word strongly sort of hit me.
Okay.
So I don't know how others feel about that. The commission felt that awareness of the neighbors.
Absolutely.
Is that accurate, folks? I want to make sure everybody agrees. Yep, Susan, Janet, you guys, Cara, yeah. You okay striking the word strongly? Okay. That's all I had. Okay, anybody else? Okay, that's good. Alrighty, so then if I can have a motion to approve the minutes as updated.
I will move. So
thanks, Mary Louise. Second?
I'll second Kathy.
Oh, I got Cara. Thank you. Any more discussion? Nope. Okay, then Jamie, you need to roll call us.
Lori?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
That's everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. We did not have anybody register for public comment this evening, but I will open it up. I know we do have some visitors. If If there's anybody who does have public comment, they can identify themselves. Sounds like none. Okay, so we will move ahead. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is discussing the court fee structure and reservation systems. And this is something that's, just sort of been on my mind for a little bit of time. And, I didn't feel like I had sort of a complete orderly understanding of like everything we do and how we do it. So Jim was good enough to put together a summary, which I attempted to put in a spreadsheet, which of course, when I printed it, came out in about 3 fonts. So I really almost can't read it right now. But I have Jim's notes. But I think really the thinking on this was, and then going into the discussion about the fee schedule is, one, we've had some requests, as recently as last, month to convert, tennis courts into pickleball courts. So I just wanted to get a feel for, understand again, the number of courts and, if you took away more tennis courts, what does that leave us with and all of that. And we've also had some inquiries about having a reservation system for the pickleball courts, as opposed to right now it's completely first come, first serve. And I know Pam and the staff have felt that they wanted to keep the pickleball that way. And I'd like to have them share their thinking about that. So it's not necessarily, this is not an action item tonight, but I just kind of wanted to lay it out, make sure that we understood, what's happening, really understand, the usage of the different courts. As you can see, we have 9 tennis courts, 3 of which are striped for pickleball. And those, I believe, Jim, are the ones that don't ever get reserved. Those are the first come, first serves.
Those can be reserved for tennis.
They can. Okay, so if somebody has them reserved for tennis, then the pickleball folks are out of luck. They cannot be reserved for pickleball?
No, currently not. But if somebody reserved them, we wouldn't know if they're reserving them for tennis or pickleball.
Okay, so if somebody reserved it as a tennis court and was using part of it for pickleball, then that would just take it out of commission for tennis.
Yep.
Okay, so somebody effectively could do it. We just don't know that that's what's happening. Okay.
Right. I think ideally the pickleball players like to use the new courts as opposed to the set of 3 courts.
Right. And then the reservation system is, for tennis, it's block only. Those are the only reservations we take is block. Somebody can't just say, gee, I've got friends in town. I'd love to go play this Saturday. Let me just reserve for an hour. It's just only block for tennis, and everything else is first come, first serve.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, Lori, is it all manual now? So, Jim, do you guys do this all manually? There's no digital sort of system someone can sign up with?
For the tennis courts, no. It's for the tennis courts, we accept anybody that wants to reserve a court for the season, or for a 4 to 12 week period of time. So you would be able to submit that to us. We would enter it into the system like a permit, and then they would have to pay for that. Typically they pay for it online. I'd send them a link. Here, here's your permit. Just go online and pay for it. So that's currently what we do with the tennis courts.
Okay. And then paddle, we have the same or similar annual lottery where people send in their form and say, this is my first, second, and third choice, like Wednesday night at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Somebody we know. And then other than that, then there are periods where you can just one-off on a Saturday or something, go in and reserve online and just say, do you want a court for an hour or 2 hours?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And then nothing for pickle. So I'm just curious, why have we not, for instance, with tennis had built any kind of online, just I want to reserve for an hour or 2 or whatever, and kept that all first come, first serve, versus paddle where, either you can do the block, but you can also go in and, reserve for a particular time period. What's the thinking been on that?
I think the thinking, a couple of reasons. I think number one, the demand for tennis courts aren't nearly as much as they are for paddle tennis. We have sometimes where the tennis courts are busy, especially when we have the high school using them or we have tennis lessons, but we're not inundated with complaints for people that can't get on a tennis court or having to wait for tennis courts. We also don't have any staff at tennis courts or pickleball courts to monitor usage. So, we have, at the paddle tennis courts, you have somebody, a tenant that's there almost, from 8 or 9 in the morning till 10 at night every day during the week. So they can make sure everyone's on the right courts. They can monitor that if there's disputes with court times and things like that. So I think those are the two biggest reasons that we haven't had to or we haven't switched to an online system. We also the other thing to consider is with a tennis court, whether if you're a resident, you can go on and reserve if you want it. Not right now, but if we had an online system, you'd be able to reserve courts. We can't set a parameter of you can only reserve one tennis court a week or something like that, unfortunately. So my fear is you'd have somebody going on there, whether it's pickleball or tennis, reserving a bunch of courts at a very nominal fee, and whether using it or not, I don't know, but I think it could cause some issues with people being able to use courts. So I think those are the major reasons why we don't have it online.
Couldn't somebody do that on paddle tennis as well?
Yeah, but you're paying $20-$25 advance per shot, so it's a little bit more costly, I think, to do that. I don't think
To do that.
Doing that right.
And why historically has there been such a fee difference between paddle tennis and tennis? Is it just the greater amenities with the hut and everything? Or I know we have the attendant there, but just again, I'm just trying to, for everybody's benefit, just sort of ask sort of the basic questions, like the historical context and why we do it the way we do it. I'm not saying it's wrong, and I don't want to imply that. It's just something I can't remember when we've talked about as a commission. So I thought, we're going to be talking about fees tonight, it would be helpful to have a little bit of context.
Yeah, when I first started here, it was that was one of the questions I had, and I think the way it was explained to me is the costs that we have associated with paddle tennis, including staffing, building maintenance, lights, heaters, propane. Those costs we charge a little bit more for the paddle tennis, or significantly more for paddle tennis, to offset some of those operating costs. So that's the reasoning that was given to me, that we're trying to offset the costs that are associated. We don't, with tennis courts, we don't have as much built-in costs into maintaining them.
Okay, that's helpful. Questions from the commission? No, everybody's comfortable. And then maybe you all could speak about, the fact that we've had, some requests to do a lottery for block time for the paddle tennis courts. And I know you guys haven't wanted to go that way. Maybe you could talk about that a bit. Not paddle, I'm sorry, I misspoke, pickleball.
Yeah, and Jamie, jump in if you want to hear. We've had, I know the pickleball courts are very popular, and they're in high demand. We had the senior men's group came to us with the request for reserving courts on certain days for certain hours. The conversation we had with them, and I feel very strongly, and I'm sure Jamie and Pam do too, that if we reserve courts for one group, or you offer to reserve courts for one group or one resident, you have to do it for everybody. So that's why we have a lottery process with the paddle tennis. That's why we have a lottery with the tennis courts. The feeling I got from the senior men's group, and we told them this, is if we have a lottery, you're going to risk that time that you enjoy going and using those courts going to somebody else. Somebody else, it's a lottery, somebody else could get that. And I think they were more inclined to just show up and use the courts on a first come, first served basis. if that was the case. So I think we've kind of backed away from that. I think our idea, Jamie, maybe something similar to the tennis courts, or maybe have some kind of a hybrid model.
We're losing you, Jim.
A lot of feedback with some structure.
If folks who are listening could just put themselves on mute, that will help with the feedback.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's, I think we could do something similar that we do with tennis, but I think the fear from the senior men's group is that if we have a lottery, that they're going to lose out on the time that they've been using. But maybe Jamie, if you don't mind, just talking a little bit about, I know you offered some built-in different level play time for them.
Yeah, I think we can definitely attempt a block time modeled after tennis, but I think for us, or at least what I have gathered so far, I'd like that to be more of a plan B, but I'm open to whatever you guys think is best. But I mean, for plan A, I think trying at least some sort of like categorized level open play would be a good way to at least attempt, where I've got a new message board. One of the complaints last year was we had really no good signage. It was very hard to post down there because I was like laminating it and putting it on the fence, and it would get blown away, and it wasn't great. So we've got a new nice board to kind of look like our tennis boards to go up this year. And so I can post in there whatever rules and things like that were consistent complaints that, it was hard to get people to follow procedure when they weren't posted. So we're going to have that this year. And then we could do a schedule. We'll have our lessons and stuff like that, but then we would do suggested leveled play times. So, and even like specifically to the senior men, like we could do senior open play in the mornings that they would like to use. So it's already a suggested level time when they can come down, and it's suggested for seniors. They are welcome to come, but then if other seniors that aren't a part of the men's association wanted to come and participate, at least they would know that's a time that seniors were going to come and play. So I thought that was like a nice way to start. But and then from 12 to 2 we would have an advanced open play, and no one's down there monitoring it, but it would, at least if Patty goes down there and looks at the schedule and she looks and finds she's advanced or intermediate or whatever, she's going to say, oh, well, maybe I'll come on Tuesday and see who else is playing, since I'm an intermediate and there might be other intermediates here playing. So it's like a little bit of a medium between, we don't have the staff to go down there and manage who's playing when, but like it could offer a suggestion so that if someone doesn't know anyone and doesn't know when to go over there or when it's going to be available, they can look at the schedule and then try that time and see if they can find some buddies to play with. I mean, it's worked for other departments, and it's what it seems to be the most universal thing working right now. So I think it's worth a try before we do the block system, since we haven't had a ton of requests for reserve time. But so that would be like my plan A. But plan B, we can definitely model something after tennis, and we can do a lottery. I'm just not sure the needs there, where this might facilitate more users. But and I don't know, maybe Patty could even, if you can chime in. I mean, like I said, I am just trying to take the feedback from other departments. I went to a class at the national conference, and a lot of the towns that are attempting reserve time, if they can't monitor it, they're having a lot of issues from one thing to another. And I thought this might be a good medium. I mean, pickleball, Steve thinks this is the way to go, and he has a lot of ideas. But I don't know. What do you think, Patty?
Well, thank you for asking. I just will say I concur with both Jim and Jamie. Thank you for all your hard work. Yes, Lori, the real reason Jim, thanks for laying out the difference in pricing of the $25, for paddle and the $5 for pickle if you were to do reserve a block time. Because when you spell it out like that, because it's staffing, it's the gas for the propane at paddle, things like that. That all makes sense. It's the lights, right? Because we have lights down there. We don't have lights down there. I mean, interestingly enough, that alone would, if you were having a higher price, that would make some people not play at Cherry Lawn. And I think we do want to try and be as inclusive as possible. So, the Men's Association have talked to me, for the last year, like they've talked to you. And that was what I echoed back. I was like, listen, dudes, you guys got it going. You have your times. Everybody's respectful of when you go on. I'm forgetting now because it's winter, although they're still there sometimes, like Tuesdays and Thursdays, they're there from 7:30 to 9, right? Or 8 to 10. And the rest of the people kind of know it, respect it, and then will come at 10. Or senior men's will take 2 courts, and the other dedicated players that always come on a Tuesday and Thursday or a Monday and Wednesday will take the other 2 courts. And so there's a feel and a rhythm that goes there. I wanted to tell you 2 things. Number one, I will put you in touch with people that there's 2 team apps that's like an aggregator. So they actually are setting up open play now, and it's been very successful. So there's no charge for it. It's just a aggregator of on Sundays from 12 to 2, we have open play. The first 10 people that sign up are in, and then you can get on the wait list. So they're kind of doing a lot of the work for you guys. So I almost feel like I try not to give yourself more work to do, if that makes sense. But Jamie, I will connect you with them. And Sean Shea knows that as well. Valley knows those, they're part of that kind of whole team app system. And again, in conclusion, if somebody really wants to block some time at a certain time, then I would raise the price higher than $5. That would be my opinion to do that. But I think there's enough flexibility there, and I think there's overflow onto the tennis courts during the day when they're not being used. During the summer, the tennis courts are being used more, and out in the afternoon they're being used. But as Jim said, most of the people who would want to block anything would do it at where the 4 main courts are. But the program's doing great, and I'm still always amazed at people that are out there in the freezing cold still playing. So thank you for all your support. Hope that's helpful.
I had to unmute. Thanks, Patty. Yeah. Any thoughts for, Jim and Jamie or the group about, we had the request last month, basically saying, well, if you're going to repave or, resurface the tennis courts at Cherry Lawn. Anyway, what I understood the ask to be was, how about turning them into more pickleball courts? As I understood the ask. And I just wanted, it was public comment, so we didn't really discuss it, but I did want to just get a chance to get people's, feeling about that of dedicating more existing court space to pickleball permanently, because I would, now you can use it either or. I would assume that it's not as easy to play when you're on sort of a court that's striped 2 ways. But I didn't know how people felt about that ask or whatever. I just wanted to have a chance to discuss it a little bit while, we were talking about this.
Lori, can I just say one thing and then I'll go mute again? Are you talking about the addition of an additional court next to the tennis courts? Are you talking about because they're already lined, those 3 tennis courts? Remember how Pam had thrown in an additional court there?
Yes.
A lot of pushback.
My understanding of the suggestion during last month's public comment was, given that we plan to resurface the tennis courts at Cherry Lawn because it's just time to do that, that perhaps we consider turning 1 or more of them into pure pickleball instead of tennis. Now, if you guys think I misinterpreted that, please correct me, but that's what I thought I heard the ask to be.
One of the existing. So if you're talking about one of the existing ones, I would recommend against that, because you're going to be turning it a separate way, like we did at the other courts. So then you're having the balls run into the other 2 tennis courts all the time. I would recommend to Pam and you all that if you're looking to pickleball, explore other areas. explore if there's an opportunity to do it down at Weed Beach or at the old Edgerton Center. I just want you guys to keep in mind, I know we're cautious about the traffic at Cherry Lawn. When you do a and we love the pickleball court, but when you do a pickleball court, there's 4 people on each court. So that gave us 16, if all 4 courts are filled at the pickleball court, that's 16 cars coming in.
Understood.
And
Yep.
so that's something we'd have to factor in if you were taking one of those 3 courts down below and adding that in as well. So I say spread the wealth to other areas of town.
Okay, I just want to, did others interpret the ask the way I did?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and I just didn't know, with, demand on the tennis court, whether, taking away another tennis court, and that's why again, I wanted to kind of see the numbers, just have them in front of us and how much demand there is on the tennis courts, because then you could have the tennis players say like, hey, wait. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I had interpreted that properly and just get a kind of sense of people's, reaction to it. I don't know if, others, had a thought either way on that request. Okay. So it doesn't sound like at this moment, there seems to be a feeling that we would be considering that. Is that accurate by lack of commentary? Okay. Okay. So any more just, general discussion, information gathering on the courts? Again, I just, it's been on my mind for a while. We get these different, asks and bits and pieces. And as I said, we hadn't really talked about it as a commission as long as I could remember. So I thought it was worth, revisiting in the context of what we've got going with our existing courts. I mean, certainly Jim had put forward the suggestion that we should be thinking about adding more paddle tennis courts at some point. I think we didn't leave that in the budget for this year, but court sports are, certainly under demand and popular. And he's certainly told us that paddle tennis is getting more and more popular. I know, my husband, who's been playing down there for 30 years, said it's the most crowded he's ever seen it. We're certainly hearing that there's the demand for the pickleball and such. I don't hear as much about the demand for tennis, which was another reason I just kind of wanted to generally, discuss it. It sounds like we're not getting complaints or having challenges with lack of tennis court availability, if I'm hearing Jim and Jamie correctly. So we're okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're definitely not inundated with complaints about the usage of the tennis courts.
Okay. Okay, good. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, it's been cold recently, but, certainly down at Weed, I mean, you see people out there playing tennis really almost all year round. If we get some nice days, it's really, become very popular, much more of the year. So, I mean, it's definitely days I go down there, there's people playing paddle tennis and regular tennis as well. Okay, good. Okay, well, if there's no more on that, as I said, there was no action item here. I just thought it would be worth having a conversation about it as we also go into the fee discussion, and then just to follow up on that public comment last month. So, thank you for your help on that piece, Jim. I really appreciate it. Okay, so the next, we do need to vote on the fee schedule. Now, traditionally, we've done this in January, which it is, although for some reason this year, why it hasn't in the past, it kind of smacked me in the face is why we were doing this after we approved the budget. Seemed a little bit weird. I mean, technically, we don't totally couple them up, but on the other hand, they would kind of seem to go together. So we may want to move that for future years. I think it's because these tend to be more seasonal and they get implemented probably July 1st, but nonetheless, we may want to think about that for future years. Pam did not really send me any details on the increases she's listed. A couple of things I will note. She added in here a line about full-time town employees, and we've talked about that in the few past years. Our park rules do not allow for this. So it is my belief that we really can't vote on a fee for something that our rules don't allow. This has come up, I guess there had been some practice of doing this, although it was never in the rules. That became more to light during COVID. It came 2020. It came up again last year. I had asked Pam to research whether this was the practice of our neighboring communities, and based on the research she came back, it did not appear that the neighboring communities do this. And I think we would also want to understand, the potential population, the number of people, because I guess the historical practice was it's all the town employees, all of the Board of Ed employees, the library employees. There might have been a few others thrown in there. So, I think we would really need to understand the magnitude of the population. So, as I said, my view is we really can't vote on a fee for a category that does not exist in our rules. So, I suggest we really remove that piece. But certainly open to any comments on that.
Lori, just a procedural question for folks like myself who are new. Where are the rules? If I wanted to just read through them, I'm not debating anything you're saying. I just want to make sure.
They're posted on the website.
Got it. Okay.
Rules. Yep. When when you have insomnia, go ahead and read them.
Planning on it.
Yeah.
Lori, is there a rationale that is used for suggesting an increase, or is it purely arbitrary? After so many years at the same level, after 3 years, do you add on, an increase in price, or what? What caught my eye was the community garden fee, which
I knew it would.
which is very low, I will say.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious as to why she decided to move it to 20. Is it that we're using more water and the water's costing more, or what?
I don't know. That's why I said, unfortunately, Pam didn't really provide any rationale for these particular increases. Generally, I say as a commission, and Susan Daly probably is the best one to give us context, but we really tried to avoid, increasing too much. We did last year increase the seasonal parking for the beaches, and our specific thinking on that was that we wanted to maintain the summer, kind of roving security guard that we had implemented during COVID, but found that there was real benefit to having, someone who's a dedicated employee. I mean, technically we hire them through another firm, but effectively they act as a Parks and Rec employee who's in, kind of the face of the department in the parks, interacting with our communities. And we wanted to maintain that. And we decided by increasing the fee by $5 that we could fund that. So that was sort of a specific reason. I think after beach was renovated, we increased the fee maybe then because we felt we were offering the community much more. But since then, no, I don't feel that there's really been any analysis in terms of our expenses have gone up by X and we need to pass this along to the community. It just kind of gets absorbed in all of the taxes that, that we all pay. So I cannot specifically speak unless Jamie or Jim, you got any background from Pam as to why she was suggesting these particular increases.
The only thing she mentioned to me, Laura, I'm not sure, I can't speak on the community gardens, but I think it was where the beach sticker fee, beach permit fee was increased last year, but the boat launch was not. So I think it was just having it come in line with an increase that wasn't made last year. I think that was the rationale for that.
Yeah, because we don't, based on the information you sent, thank you so much for pulling it together so quickly. We just don't sell a lot of boat permits, and it was actually off quite a bit last year based on the numbers. I think what might have happened in 2020, this is my speculation, is that folks who have slips at the boat club, many of them launch their boat in the spring and pull it out in the fall. And while technically they should be buying a launch permit to do that. It almost always happens before we have the security guard on site in the spring, so they're not doing that. But in 2020, as you'll recall, we had the beach locked during that launch period because of COVID. Remember, we had it's almost hard to remember that we did this, but unfortunately we did. We actually closed the parking lots to our parks during the worst of COVID, so the boaters couldn't access the park. So we made arrangements, and I think that forced them to actually then buy the sticker. I also learned that, different workers who were servicing people's boats that may be stored elsewhere were then bringing the boats around to launch them again without a permit. So some of these are different things that kind of came to light during COVID. So Jim, I'm guessing that's why 2020 popped. But then it fell back down again last year when, the parking lot was open. But I mean, we could bump it by $5, but we're selling 100 a year, so that's what, $500. I mean,
Lori, I just wanted to go back to your comment about the past history of the fee changes.
Yeah.
You're correct in the sense that we didn't change the fees for many years, especially during renovation of Weed Beach, because we felt that we weren't offering, value-added services or anything, that was different. And so we kept holding off until we finished Weed Beach to do kind of the big hike, I would call it. But then I think just looking at the way the commission's going and the way, revenues and all these other stuff is, I think there was a shift also to like covering expenses. I think we talked about it for the paddle hut and those courts. And now that we have a different accounting system, it seems like there is more monitoring of what we're bringing in to the town for some of the services we provide. And the popularity of using fees that you're basically charging the users, fees that hopefully will be then used to renovate or upkeep those services like the beaches or whatever. I think, there's some of that that's, I think we should consider also, because, maybe there are people that don't fully use all the services. When we did the playground, that was the rationale for doing the playground as a fundraiser, that the end users were going to be, paying for it, supporting it. So I think as a commission, we might want to look at that and see if, if we could recover, if we're not going to get the funding we need to take care of this, we need to figure out a way to fund those services, the maintenance cost. And it might be the place to do it, if we're not going to see it from the other end. So I'm not saying we changed the fees this year, but it's something to consider, that now that, the accounting system kind of each revenue source and profit areas or whatever you call them. I'm not very good at them.
All right. Thanks for that, Susan. Other thoughts or comments? I mean, one challenge certainly in increasing the the boat launch fee is, as we know, that the ramp itself has issues, which we'll talk about a bit later. So in some ways it's a kind of a funny time because there's a lot of periods of time where it's marginally or not not usable at all. So that would be an issue. And then so where's that? So yeah, so she was doing the boat launch for. Jim, remind me, can anybody purchase a daily boat launch? So say someone from New Canaan with a trailer or a boat, they can come in as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So those would be typically more sold to non-residents, I would assume, given
typically
given the price.
And we don't sell a lot of boat launch daily passes.
Right.
Most of the activity down at the beach is our parking permits, parking for daily parking passes.
Yeah. I mean, I could maybe see, boosting the, the daily boat launch because presumably that's more of a non-resident. I'm I'm indifferent. And then, same thing about the community gardens. I don't have a sense, Mary Louise, how long it's been the same. Oh, you're on mute, Mary Louise.
That price has been there for at least the last 20 years anyway.
Okay.
We also pay an additional fee just as members of the garden. It's another $15 or whatnot. And that money is used to buy equipment that we need and so on. As far as I can tell, the only cost to the town would be water, basically.
Mhm.
Everything else we pay for ourselves.
Okay. So, and then this fee is per plot.
Per plot, yes.
Per plot. And I don't know if we have here, how many is this?
There are 60 altogether.
60 or 16?
60.
60. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a long waiting list, correct?
There is a very long waiting list, yes.
Longer or shorter than the train station? Well, maybe that's not a good comparison anymore, but
There are at least 25 to 30 people who would like a plot.
okay. But I don't think a $5 fee is not going to shake somebody out. Is there any requirement that somebody who has a plot actively tends it?
Oh, absolutely. If you
Okay.
don't, you are kicked out.
Okay.
And there are 3 or 4 times during the course of the season, there are inspections that take place regarding having planted the entire plot and also monitoring the weeds and also maintaining the paths around your plot so that there are no weeds, no invasives, and so on. And
Okay.
so that's pretty strict.
Okay. So we wouldn't be shaking people out who aren't users by raising the fee.
No.
It's
No.
not what Jim was saying about the tennis courts. Well, if we did the block and it's only $5, somebody say, oh yeah, I'll block it every week because it's $5, and if I don't go, who cares? It wouldn't. You have your own sort of self-policing mechanisms to make
Correct.
sure that the people who have them are using them and tending them
Correct.
properly. Okay. Okay.
And
So,
we do lose 2 or 3 people a year
mhm.
who have not done anything with their plot, and we quickly fill them up.
Okay. Okay. So I don't have a strong view either way on whether we want to raise the fee or not. I would really love to hear from the rest of you on these. I mean, I'm sure we can increase them, and it's not going to be the end of the world or anything, but I just, do you guys feel we should try to just grab a little more revenue, or is there any reason to hold? I mean, Mary Louise does bring up that, water is expensive, and I guess that's probably the increased cost.
Do we know what the water bill is, Jim Conklin, for that space, or is it separated, or?
I'd have to look that up. It is separated. I think it's on a separate meter. I'd have to look that. I don't have that right in front of me.
Right. It's definitely probably gone up over the years, though.
Absolutely has. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that price has been in existence for a very long time.
Yeah, I know it's never changed since we've never been touched that
Okay.
ever. We've never even discussed it, honestly. It's never come up on an agenda, which is good. Means you guys don't cause trouble.
Yeah. Well, then I suppose I could be the contrarian and say, is $5 enough of an increase? But
Oh. Now, just because you've got your very own plot, Lori.
I said that. I mean, it's just kind of pick $5, and you're like, well, is that is that the right number or something? But I guess technically it's a 30% increase, so that's probably enough. So, but anyway, so just I'd love to hear just people what your views on the 3 proposed increases, which are the seasonal boat sticker, the per boat, the daily, and then the guard, and then of course anybody could propose any other increases as well, but I'm just not hearing general movement in that range. So I don't know, maybe I'll just go around the horn. Susan?
I guess I'm okay with increasing it. I mean, it's not a ton of money, and it's the only fee we've never really addressed, and I'm sure the water usage would warrant it, to be honest with you. So.
Okay, all right, sorry, I gotta find faces. Clara?
I'm fine with the proposal. I think I appreciate Susan's comments earlier that trying to understand what the overall objective of our fees is, and are we trying to fully recoup the marginal cost of the particular activity, or are we trying to have it be more of a market clearing price for the use of the asset would be sort of a framework, but I think overall it seems like the system's working well, so not sure it's worth revisiting at a really large strategic level. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, going across, Kathy?
I'm okay with it. I think the fact that the community gardens fee wasn't increased in 20 years sold me. I think we're probably reasonable. I do like the fact that we've kept the fees low for everyone in the town, and I think we've done a great job at that. So I do like that. Hey, Lori, is there a way to change our rules so that town employees can get beach permits, or is that just a really hard thing to do? That was one thing.
We could change the rules, but I think we would be well served to do our homework on it before we do that and really understand what it is we're signing up for, you know, and the potential populations it brings into the beach. I continue to be extraordinarily mindful of the number of new apartments that are coming online that I think are going to drive a lot more traffic to the beaches and parking. I drive over to the Heights now, and I just can't get over how massive that thing looks. So I just think we have to do it with our eyes wide open and really understand what we're doing and what the potential population is. You know, it just sounds like an easy peasy, oh yeah, what the heck? But, you know, I think we have to be thoughtful about that. We also have to be thoughtful about, you know, the more, you know, statewide move in terms of, you know, inclusion and understand how it plays into that, so I just think there's a lot of layers. It's not just it's just not quite as simple, I think, as it might seem, like pretty much everything else in life these days. The devil's really in the details.
I don't disagree. I just think it's something maybe we should consider. Actually, I think from an inclusion standpoint, it might help us. So from that standpoint, but it is just something I think we should consider since it wasn't asked. But I guess my question too is I don't know how much of an ask is it? So that's merely sort of a question for Jamie and Jim. Like, is it a large ask from the town employees, or is just something a couple have requested?
No, Jamie, I think you were talking today. I think we've sold off 80 permits to most of just a little bit of history. When I started here, we've been following that town employees. Mostly it's teachers, full-time teachers. So you have teachers that live in, I don't know, New Canaan, Trumbull, that don't have a beachfront, and it's kind of a perk. Hey, you get to buy a beach permit for the town of Darien. So, you know, I think that was something that they've offered to help. People aren't going to work for town of Darien Board of Education for a beach sticker, but it's a nice thing for us to offer. It's not a large ask, I don't think. We did have a few that I wouldn't say upset, that just were disappointed, I guess, that they couldn't get their beach permits during COVID. And we explained, you know, we're trying to limit the amount of people coming into the beach. I don't think we're being inundated with people coming down and that don't live in town that are trying to be that are town employees. It would basically be, like Lori said, be Board of Education, full-time employees, town hall employees, library, and police department. Those are I think the four that we would sell them to. And I think it's been right around that 80 mark every year. And I'd say predominantly it's teachers, full-time teachers that are purchasing the permits. So that's kind of where we are right now with it.
So Jen, when you said Board of Education, that includes all the teachers in all 7 schools. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And that historically had been around 80 per year until COVID.
Correct.
So Kathy, is the current request just to see if we can resume the standard practice?
Yeah, I just would like to look into it maybe a little bit more to see if we should resume it for the teachers in town who give us
Yeah.
so much.
I tend to agree with you, Kathy. If that was historically have been a perk for us to offer to town employees, especially, if someone doesn't live in town, even when you live in town, I don't know that you're, going to be able to go to the beach like every day. So especially if you don't go live here locally, it's quite a trip to, make it down here to go to the beach. So I don't know that, of course, I'm open to seeing any data we may have on this, but I don't know that the volume of visitors would be so overwhelming that it would become a volume issue. But I hear you, Lori, on the incoming, number of multifamily units that we should take into consideration. Although my opinion is that if this was something we were doing pre-COVID, I don't know that it should change, because of COVID. If that makes sense.
It
Like
only
if,
came to light we were doing it, but it was not with the commission's explicit permission or knowledge.
was
It
it
was
in
just,
any bylaws in the past?
no. It just was happening and it came to light, when we had to really tighten down. We went through a brief period during the worst of COVID in the summer of 2020 when we were, do we let any non-town residents, buy, how do we do this summer, whatever. And that's when it came to light. And I was like, where does it say we do this? And it was just, oh, we've just kind of always done it. And then, our response at the time was, well, if this is something we want to consider, we should really do sort of a market survey and understand whether this is a common, does Stanford do it? Does Norwalk do it? Does Westport do it? Does Greenwich do it? Do the survey of peer towns that we generally would do, and then understand the full, population of potential individuals who could. Now, maybe it's only 80, but how many people are we talking about? Is it 500? Is it 7? I mean, we need to know those numbers. And that information has not come back to us. So I just think to consider it and to consider a rules change, we just need to do the homework like we do on anything, anything else.
That I agree with. Thanks
Yeah,
for the background.
I agree with you too, Lori, that we should do the homework. I also think we could limit the number and do it on a first come, first served basis. And just limit the number if we're concerned about that. But I do think it's nice to give it as a benefit to the town employees. If we can help us get more better teachers, I'm all for it. So if we can try and look into it a little bit more and provide the data that we think is necessary, I think there's probably a way we could look at the rules and figure out what we need to do from a rules standpoint.
Okay. All right. Well, that can be a takeaway. But as I said, I don't think we can vote on a fee for something that we don't currently have a mechanism for. Okay. All right. So, am I hearing, is there an interest in or making a motion on the proposed fee increases, which is the increase to the, I'm sorry, Pam, she highlighted in blue, which is making it extremely difficult for me to read. She was suggesting $5 for the daily boat launch and $5 for the community garden. But See, she highlighted in blue the boat launching permit for the sticker, but she didn't list that below. So Jim, do you know what she was getting at here?
Yeah, I believe the intention was on the boat launching permit to go from 45 to 50 and the
Okay.
boat launch daily fee to go from 65 to 70. $5
Okay.
increase for that.
All right, she didn't mark it. It was just confusing to me the way she presented it. So, because down below she did increase
The community garden.
from 15 to 20. She didn't increase, but it was just a confusing presentation. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, do we have a motion to increase the boat sticker from 45 to 50? The boat launch daily fee from 65 to 70? And the community garden per plot fee from 15 to 20. Is anybody going to make that motion? Susan? Okay. So, second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mary Louise. You better watch out. You may
I
find some
know.
aphids in your garden.
You're right. I don't know if Dorothy will be too happy about this.
Oh, where'd this cabbage worm come from? Okay. Any further discussion? Oh, I'm frozen. My picture froze. It always freezes. It makes me look like I'm asleep. Hold on. I'm going to decamera and. Okay. 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 Now I'm moving again. Happened last month too. Jamie, can you do the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Lori?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
That's everybody.
Okay. Great. Okay. Next item is the update on the winter dog program. Oh,
Well,
Jim?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think you have to vote to approve all the other fees.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're
So
right. Okay.
maybe,
So
I don't know if it should be
should we
a different motion, or I guess it has to be.
I guess at this point, because we voted yes, so you're right. So then we would, thank you. That was a really good catch. So then we would need a motion to hold all of the other fees on the fee schedule to their previous year's level. So,
Yeah.
Mary Louise?
Yes, I'll make
Yes.
that motion.
Okay. Second? Susan, Cara, somebody I can see? Susan, yes. Okay. All right. So we'll have to do that again, Jamie.
Lori?
Yeah, I'm a yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cara?
Yes. Yes.
Janet?
Yep.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Everybody.
Okay, so on to the dogs. I think we've gotten into the practice of just kind of doing a little bit of a touch base on this as we rolled into the season to see how things were going. So I don't know that we need a lot of discussion here. Probably we want to take a look at the rules over the coming months, and we may get to the point where we just want to kind of build this into the rules, and it is what it is. So we don't have to talk about it every year. Based on how it's going. I think the idea of the first few years was really to test run it and see if it was working for everybody. I haven't heard about any issues. I was down there one time and I did see somebody in the playground with their dog in the playground once so far this year. I haven't been down to the beach a ton just because the weather's been stinky and I've been working a lot. But just others, I know, Susan, you've been going down quite a bit.
Actually, I haven't gone in the during the cold snap, to be honest with you. I'm a little bit of a wimp.
Okay.
But I did go down to Todd's Point recently, and the way they tell people that they have to keep their dogs on leash is they have one of those giant flashing signs. It was
Ooh.
really amazing. It really catches your attention as you drive in that your dog has to stay on leash there. And they have a ton of staff, to be honest with you, at different points at the park. I counted probably like 5 or 6 people just monitoring different things in cars, rangers.
No, we don't have that.
Yeah, I know we don't, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a contrast for a neighboring town that does allow, it partially at a certain time. And how they handle things, but it's very specific how the dogs have to be on leash. So I thought that was helpful.
Where is this, Susan?
It was at Todd's Point.
Oh, okay.
They open only for, on leash, if you walk around the trails.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
non-resident, by the way. You can go as a non-resident. I should tell you that.
So I don't know, Jim or Jamie, are you aware of any feedback that's come to town, or Jamie, anything through our doggy do people?
I hope I don't speak wrongly here, but I am not aware of any negative feedback. I've received some fun messages and pictures and stuff of people enjoying it. I swear that's the honest truth. I have not had any negative feedback. And I have not heard from Pam that we've had anything negative either. And I'm pretty sure Jem would know if we had anything through like the park rec email or anything like that. So as far as I am aware, the only feedback we received are like new residents enjoying it and very positive.
Okay.
Ask a question on this. I would agree that just in my time on the beaches, I see people enjoying this, but have you had input from town council just in terms of any liability issues associated with off leash?
I don't know that we did that now.
We don't do that with any of the other off-leash areas either. With Tilly or Cherry Lawn, it's basically, the rules are published, and we have never had anybody, come back to us and say, I think if someone did have an incident with another dog owner, there might be something on that level, but I don't think the town's ever been, involved in a lawsuit that I've been at, for the time I've been here, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think,
I don't know if it was looked at by town council though, to be fair, to answer your question.
yeah, I think as long as you publish the off-leash times, you're okay. And people are aware of the risks and the liability. That's typically how it's sort of handled. But it's a great question.
Any other questions or comments? We do have a sign near the playground saying no dogs allowed, as I recall. Okay, so people are just ignoring it. Okay. That's the one thing that really irritates me when I see that. Kimberly, you would like to speak?
Turn my mic up. Hello, I'm Kim Kiner. I'm new to the Parks and Recs committee. I just want to introduce myself, but also I'm a user of the winter dog program for our dog. And the only comment that I have that I've brought up before in the past, and I mean, it's a positive one because we love the fact that the dogs can go down there, but oftentimes the dogs cut their paws on the broken seashells because the area that they're allowed to go is so far over to the left that that's where all the oyster shells wash up and break. So, the few times that I've been down there with my dog, he's cut his paws 3 times. So I can't really take him down there anymore. And if it's at all possible to maybe just move the space that the dogs can go over, 20 feet or so that they don't have to just go in and out of the water where the broken shells are. That would be most appreciated by a lot of dog owners. I know that for a fact. Many people have told me that, and I've experienced it myself. So I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up, but I thought I would.
Yep. Well, thanks for that comment.
Thanks.
Lori, this is Cheryl Russell speaking. Somebody's got a mic on and I'm getting feedback and I couldn't even hear what Kimberly just said. Is there some way we can fix this so we all hear what everybody has to say?
We just have to ask people who aren't speaking to mute themselves when they're not speaking, which it looks like pretty much everybody is except caller number 1, who only shows as C.
I
don't know.
think
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that.
I think it's Sarah, but I'm a
No,
little
I'm on mute.
I
I'm on
muted
mute.
all at once and then they couldn't unmute themselves. So I'm a little nervous to do it from an admin perspective.
Okay.
But yeah, but I can if necessary.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
been on mute the whole time, so it's not me.
Okay. All right. So it sounds a little bit better now. Okay. Okay. Any more discussion on that? I just was really a quick touch base. And as I said, I think we probably have to move towards, deciding if we want to permanently update the rules. So we'll have that as an agenda item in the months to come, I would think. Okay. Sort of last big topic tonight is the working group assignments and structure that we've been talking about. We really want to get that up and moving because, it's a new year and we have a whole lot of stuff to do. In terms of the commission members, your choices were for the Pear Tree Working Committee, Cara, Janet, and Sarah. For Weed Beach, Susan, Mary Louise, and Kathy. Basives, Amy and Mary Louise, and Playground, Susan and Kathy. So, do I have that right? Okay. So, based on those, the hope is that, those of you, hope you all got that as I rattled off and know who you're partnered up with would, start connecting in due course to, think about, a plan of work and how we want to tackle the topic in terms of determine what a plan of work would be, what the priorities are, et cetera, what constituents we need to involve going forward. Certainly I'll keep my, fingers and involvement in all of them. But, hopefully, for each one of those, somebody would take, the lead to drive the process forward. And then hopefully we would have, updates at each of our commission meetings on, the activities of the prior month and the thought process. So does that sound like that makes sense? Okay. Cara has really gotten going already with some thoughts on Pear Tree and how to move forward. And, that one's a little bit interesting because there is the Pear Tree Building Committee, which was put, I don't want to say in pause. It hasn't met really since the pandemic started. Jamie Stevenson had really, put the project on hold during the height of COVID. And as all of you know, the application has been winding its way through the system with the Army Corps of Engineers in Connecticut Deep. And I'll give a little bit of update on that during my president's report. So this isn't an alternate building committee. So Cara, framed out some thoughts. I think I'll just turn it over to you to, run that through with the commission.
Absolutely. Happy to share a couple of thoughts. So one, thank you. I know Janet and Sarah both expressed interest in working on this, as have Cheryl and Patty, and I think Chris from the RTM committee. So I'm excited. This is certainly not a redo of the building committee, but in recognizing that Pear Tree Point Beach has been a strategic priority since before the master plan. And while the building committee is on quasi hold or officially on hold, but also more importantly that I think town's changed a lot during the pandemic and with real estate development, is using this working group to help inform the strategic priorities for Pear Tree Point Beach. And we have a couple of tasks that we're hoping to accomplish in the short term, but just philosophically, I think the goal is to make sure that any recommendations are based on research in town, on town priorities and preferences, and data on what we're seeing in things like the concession business. And one of our big objectives for the near term is to put together a survey to get some feedback from how either town priorities and preferences have evolved over the past couple of years, and would love to work with the folks on Weed Beach so that perhaps we consider doing that together if it makes sense. Janet, anything you want to add to that?
No, thanks, Cara, for leading the charge here and really coming up with, I think, a set of just taking a stab at a set of survey questions that I believe you know Pam and I will, and you will probably sit down and hopefully get it to a state where we can share it with the wider group. I think the questions that we're asking we need to be very thoughtful so we can be inclusive of everyone's opinions and interests, and just also really try to reach as large of a base to respond to the survey as possible, so we really get a good representation of the town.
Great point. Any comments or questions?
For your survey, oh, this is Susan, sorry if you can't see me. Is it something that you guys are just developing, or are you going to work with the people from Sampson or anything like that? Because I know that, they've developed some of our questions from previous surveys and planning documents. So I wasn't sure if that's something, and they have obviously a tremendous amount of experience doing this too. So I didn't know if we were going to circle back to them at all.
Yeah, we certainly will, and I think making sure that we can compare to prior data will make it more useful. Pam was going to, I think they had proposed to do a survey that was going to cost 10 grand, and we we're just going to also look at what we could do through SurveyMonkey. So we're still in the process of figuring out what the operations are to execute on a survey well, and defining the questions.
Thank you.
Susan, I think to just add to the answer to your question, I think as a commission, we need to kind of discuss sort of the pros and cons of the various mechanisms that we want to use to execute the survey. To Cara's point, it is very expensive to use them, but again, of course, they do add value. So I think as a commission, we probably want to understand how much value do they add. Will they be able to help us tease out feedback, that we otherwise couldn't get through, SurveyMonkey. But I think my personal opinion is that we likely will just get more color as long as the reach is wide, as long as we get more people to respond to the survey, then that in of itself will give us the most pertinent information that Sampson and Webster would probably be able to help us do as well. But I think I personally want to understand what can they provide in terms of various ways of sort of separating the survey and sending it to different people. How do they prevent duplicates? So I want to understand where the value can be in that kind of thing that they can do.
I wasn't really questioning how you plan to execute the survey so much as I just want to get an idea of how the questions are getting answered, because, depending on what questions you answer, how you ask a question, what you ask for, it changes what you get. And I just want to make sure that we're getting what we need to get from the community that will inform, because it's just going to be obviously a snapshot in time, because we do have people that are probably going to move in after. We have people that have moved recently. But I do think that we have to make sure we're asking the questions in a way that we don't skew one way or the other, if that makes sense. And I feel like having another party look at it, it doesn't have to be Weston and Sampson, it could be any other person, just looking at those questions to make sure they're the questions we want to ask, and that answers are going to be what we need to go forward. That's my, I guess, biggest concern.
That's a completely fair point. We're in such the early stage of this, but absolutely we'll make sure that we tap a lot of sources of expertise for this.
Okay, thanks. I was talking before and forgot I muted myself. So I mean, the goal is really to help this current commission hone back in on what our recommendation would be to the selectmen for the path forward with the property. As I said, the building committee is still in place. And then that would be, translated over to the building committee's probably refreshed charge. So I just, wanted to be really abundantly clear that this is not an alternate building committee to come up with a different plan of work or the same. It's just really to help this commission formulate its thoughts that would ultimately come to a vote in terms of what our recommendation is to, get this project going again and what form that's going to take.
Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought my understanding was that the previous building committee is no longer in place.
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
That's not
That's
correct.
what Pam told me last week, but maybe
No,
I misunderstood.
I was on the phone this morning with the chair and the vice chair with Weston and Sampson, so no, that's not correct. They were paused, but they were not disbanded. They were not officially disbanded by Jamie.
Lori, are they meeting on a regular basis? Is there a regular meeting schedule or public meeting schedule for their work?
There has not been a meeting in a long time, probably went into the pandemic, but Mike and Randy continue to interface with Weston and Sampson to help shepherd the application process through. And then when there's updates, which there were as recently as today, which I'll share, they do communicate those out to the entire building committee. So the committee is definitely being kept in the loop. So it is not, I know Cheryl's on the phone, she's on the committee. It is not my understanding that the committee was disbanded. Adele was an alternate. It just was on pause.
May I
Cheryl,
say something?
you may, please do.
Thank you, Lori. No, we have not been disbanded from Jamie Stevenson. We were on hold because of the pandemic, and I think that we were waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP, which Lori just said she will discuss with you all now. We just got an email today about all of that, and Lori can explain that to you. And I think that you all need to understand we would like to keep going forward. We seem to be just waiting for permits. Am I not correct, Lori?
Well, certainly the application, which covers the parking lot and the boat ramp, yes, we're
Right.
still working our way through the permit process. And
Right.
we're probably still 6 months out anyway.
Well, I was so hoping that it wouldn't be that long, but it could be, unfortunately.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I just like, this is Adele. I
Hi,
just
Adele.
like to speak just for a little bit for the Park and Rec, the RTM Park and Rec Committee. And we saw a lot of enthusiasm about Cara's subcommittee. So I think probably perhaps we will have a few more names, and maybe you should decide how many people you would like on your subcommittees. But there seem to be a lot of interested faces at our last meeting. So I'll be in touch with you, Cara.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments or that, or, can I count on people to start getting their, working groups going in the next, month so we can start feeling like we're getting some traction? So, and did you want me to read or just go over who was signed up for what again so you all know? Or did everybody get it?
Would you mind just repeating again who's on the Weed Beach? I heard Susan and Mary Louise, but I think there was another.
Yes, so I'll just go again. Pear Tree, I have Cara, Janet, and Sarah. Weed, I have Susan, Mary Louise, and Kathy. Invasives, Amy and Mary Louise. And Playground, Susan and Kathy.
Okay.
And some of these, Playground, I'm not sure is a real heavy lift. I think it was really more thinking about just just a little bit like we did with, all the courts, is just have an inventory, information on age, and just, get up to date on kind of what's new out there in the playground world, and just sort of, again, frame our thinking about, should we have a set replacement schedule? Right now it's very ad hoc, things of that nature, but I don't think it's a real heavy lift. Okay. So any more questions or discussions on this, or we can move to kind of wrap up, and maybe not quite so late tonight, because I know we've been running till 10 o'clock at most of our meetings.
Yeah.
And okay, Pam did send a small director's report. She really just talked about the budget. So Jim or Jamie, do you have other things to update?
Jamie, well, I'll real quick, Lori, just talking about Pear Tree. I went to Board of Selectmen and Department Heads joint meeting yesterday, and First Selectwoman Monica McNally did ask that the commission at some point come before them and to give them an update on Pear Tree. I believe for budgeting purposes, just to kind of give them, the ask that we have in the budget, kind of give them an update of what we're thinking and where we're going with that. So that's probably just an email to her. Other than that, I will say, I don't know if Jamie has anything to add, but our programming is the busiest it's ever been. Our fall programs 2 years ago were up 45%. This year they're up 25%. Our winter programs, we had to cancel quite a few last January and February, and we're up 100% over where we were last year. So we're trying to run as many programs as we can, as safely as we can, and we're keeping busy with that for some. And that's all I have to add to if there's any other questions, feel free to ask.
That's great. I mean, it really shows, that the services are really, craved by our town population. And, I think there's been this discovery of, what's available locally. And once people experience these things and realize how great they are, I would suspect the demand's going to continue. And Jamie?
Yeah, I don't have anything like crazy to add. We're Jim and I are in the middle of scheduling for spring and summer now, and we have our timeline together for our brochure. So we'll be working to put that together. Our registration for spring and summer will open March 2nd for residents and March 9th for non-residents, with hopes of getting the brochures in mailboxes by the end of February. We have heard from our printer that there's a paper shortage, so hopefully that doesn't impact us. But we're going to do our best to be a little ahead of schedule, so hopefully we can still hit our deadline. But it's a hard deadline for us to hit anyway, so we'll do it the best we can. But that's a little out of our control. And then our next upcoming event will be Something Sweet, and we're going to be handling it the same way we did last year, which is Something Sweet on tour. So that'll be February 19th, which is a Saturday, and we'll have a set tour around town to different local eateries for families to enjoy dessert samples and vote for their favorite. So that's become kind of a favorite in town. So we're really excited about that, and we've had more and more local restaurants want to get involved. So we're excited that our numbers should be higher with participants as well as participating establishments this year. So we're looking forward to that this year as well.
Yeah, I may finally have to try that. Trying to resist all these years, but I don't know.
It's a lot.
It's research, right? It's research.
I did a full plate. We were having people over, so I got plates for everyone that we were gonna have, and it was we could barely eat it all, and everyone voted for something different. So it was really fun to do when after the fact even. It was really fun. So highly recommend.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Jim or Jamie? No, everybody's good. All right, well then I will give my report. We should be good and show. Might as well touch on, oh, I might gotta get to my sorry, right piece of paper. Give me 1 second. Okay. First thing, I'll just update on pear tree since we touched on that. So Weston and Sampson did get the sampling results back from the Army Corps of Engineers, and to remind, and it's very technical. It's very technical. But sediment samples were taken. They're all from under the water. These were not parking lot. These are all under the water, starting at the boat ramp, you know, sort of just off of the boat ramp, and then heading north, where the channel runs between, it's to the east of the boat club and all of those sort of inner slips, up and then around, where boaters would then go up and around to get into the river to exit out into Long Island Sound. So there were a number of samples taken, and I'm going to have to put this in the simplest terms because it's very technical, but based on the results of the soil samples, all of one of the 6 areas had sufficient contaminants, specifically levels of pesticides, that they would not or will not be suitable for disposal in the Western Long Island Sound disposal site, which is out at the end of Long Island Sound, and it's an uncapped disposal site, meaning you can dredge, take the material, dump it in the water to get rid of it. But you can't do that unless it's very clean sediment. So the bottom line is our sediment is not clean enough, probably because of runoff of pesticides from all the lawns and everything in the area, which means that the alternate would be to remove it. It has to be dewatered, which effectively means like putting it in the parking lot to dry, or I guess you can do that on a barge. And then it would have to be trucked to some disposal site, depending where it qualified for. He mentioned New Jersey. I don't know if everything goes to New Jersey or what, but New Jersey. But it's very, very expensive to do that. It would probably increase the cost. He quoted about $500,000.
Ooh.
So yes, it's a lot of money. So as we talked about it, in terms of, we could go back and have even more testing done on the soil, but based on the discussion they had from the Army Corps of Engineers, they said, we really don't think you're going to get a different result. And the person kind of said this is the highest level they've seen in a long time. So it doesn't look like more testing is going to help us. But the good news is now we have the Army Corps report, which we had to do for this project, and we can now complete the package to submit to Connecticut Deep, just understanding that our course of action has ramifications, but we can get the application going. So that's, I guess, the good news. And then it would go to Connecticut Deep, which again, they estimated would take, 6 months. But then, the decisions will have to be made and how we proceed with this. The thinking had been that if we're going to correct the slope of the boat ramp, we probably really need to dredge right adjacent to the boat ramp. But then the question is, does the town want to continue and dredge the rest of that at the same time? So those, you fix the boat ramp, but then there's some belief that we're still going to have a lot of periods of the day where it's too shallow. There seems to be a little bit of a mixed view on whether that's an issue. It was last dredged 30 years ago, so it has been a long time, and it is silting in. But as we talked about this with Weston and Sampson, Mike and I really felt that to some extent, this dredging of that whole channel area starts to really go outside of the purview of the Parks and Rec Commission. It's more sort of a town issue. And really deserves the attention of the Advisory Commission on Coastal Waters, which you know I sit on as an ex officio member. So I did speak to Bill Cavers this morning, who's the chair, because we had this meeting just today. This is hot off the press. And he absolutely was appreciative of being looped in and would like to get the Advisory Commission involved. The help with that is that a number of members on the Advisory Commission are not only in the boat club, but officers of the boat club. The harbor master is also an ex officio member of the commission, whatever. And so they really want to understand, because this affects the quality of our water, and the impact is it's not human impact as I understand it, but it's not good for, as he said, the crustaceans and the worms and the biodiversity of that environment. So we need to understand that. So Weston and Sampson agreed to attend the next Coastal Commission meeting, which is Monday, February 7th at 7:30. Mike Scrow was interested in this information getting to our commission. So what I'm proposing is that we join that meeting. The portion of the presentation, if there's enough of us, it would be a quorum. We'd have to have a joint meeting. So if enough make it, we'll make it a special meeting and just, join the Coastal Commission and have the meeting together and get the presentation on this information from Weston and Sampson. And as I said, I think some of this, then as we proceed with Pear Tree, we have to say, well, in theory, we could say this is just bigger than a bread box. We're just not going to proceed with the boat ramp. We're just going to do the park. I mean, we could go a lot of different ways, but I think we want to get all of the information and get the input and have the real partnership with the Coastal Advisory Commission on this one before we get the selectmen involved. So, if I can get a show of hands, if people think they're available on Monday, February 7th at 7:30, it'll be a virtual meeting. It's not in person. If we can get a quorum, then we'll record it as a special meeting. So, is there anybody who that does not work for? No, I'm not hearing anybody that's a problem for. Okay. Okay, so if you guys can just mark, make a note in your calendars, probably it would be a half an hour presentation with a little bit of Q&A, so it won't be a long, long night. And then the Coastal Commission, we can cease our part of the meeting, and then, the Coastal Commission will continue to do our other thing, talking about oyster beds and all the things that problems with the moorings and all the other goodies that we talk about every month, etc. So that was one thing. That was the news of the day. I had a request from the boat club. They have an interest in hosting food trucks at Pear Tree this summer, maybe 2 or 3 times. They didn't get the specific number of times, where they would take orders from their membership in advance. People would get tickets and then, get their food from the food truck and have like a club event. So they wanted to say if like that would be okay with the commission. And I, did advise them that it was my understanding that there was a prohibition against food trucks, that this has come up with, in terms of talking about Pear Tree, or we've sort of heard this, et cetera. And then I think there's other issues the commission would really want to, think about. So I think we would want to talk about it in more detail. But I did reach out to Jeremy Ginsburg about, I really said, I've always heard this about food trucks. I just wanted to get the facts. And I just heard, just give me a second. I want to pull it back up on my iPad, and I will email this to you guys. It literally, I saw it about 10 minutes before our meeting. And so it sounds like I had first tried to research it on the town website, and I couldn't find it in planning and zoning. I couldn't find it in the town code. I couldn't find anything on the food truck. So he didn't cite the specific place, but what he said is that we do allow food trucks, But unlike other communities, our policy is that as long as they are selling at a location, they can remain. But once the selling stops, they must move on. As opposed to other communities that allow food truck to stay in one place for like multi-hour chunks of time. Darien does not. And I'm going to forward this to you guys so we have it. And then there was this memo that sort of lays it all out, but it's dated March 18th, 2009. So this kind of goes way back. But what they're saying is the concept seems to be is that if a food truck can't park somewhere and kind of wait for people to show up and say, I want to buy something, they have to be moving. And if somebody says, hey, I want to buy something, they can stop, sell the food, and then move on. So that's the idea of the ice cream truck, that goes around to the beaches, with the music, the music. Cara knows the music. So if you live near the beach, you know the music. So the idea is they come and then they have to move on. And what he cited, this memo cites it says a rule of thumb of 500, which is that they can stay at a site for no more than 5 minutes, then move at least 500 feet away and not return to the same area for 5 hours. So it's just, they got to be circulating. Now, what I was noodling with in the few minutes before the meeting is, well, if a food truck is taking pre-orders and over, say, an hour period, they're dispensing the food, aren't they actively serving customers? Because the customers are coming to them and they're serving. So it's a little bit gray, and I think we'll have to dig into this a little bit more. And they have to get a health department permit as well. But so that's the gist of it, is the way the town rules work right now. Because we've talked about over the years, instead of having said to just bring a food truck out, the rules are you can't just come and park a food truck and let it sit there and wait for the customers to come. But if there was a steady stream of customers, then is it okay? So that's where it gets a little funny. If somebody pulls up to a parking lot and boy, just, they can't keep up fast enough selling their food, then, it sounds like they don't have to move after 5 minutes, if I'm understanding this properly. So I will send this out to you. I will forward it to the individual from the boat club who inquired so they understand. But then, we would, if this falls within the rules, and I think we would have to check with Jeremy a little bit more, or it sounds it might even be more. This was written by Dave Keating. Did he retire, Jim? So it would have to be the new Dave Keating, whoever that is, to understand this a little bit better. We would have to decide if this was something that we wanted to accommodate the boat club with. They seem to want to keep it only to boat club members, as to just say, gee, this is something we do sort of as a town event, but we would have to talk about that and say, well, if you're going to do it, then we would want, townspeople to be able to buy tickets in advance or something as well. I think we would, we'll have to talk about all of those things. But I just did want to share with you that I'd had that inquiry. So any just questions or comments on that? No, everybody's good. Okay. And the only last thing I wanted to mention is, the town is receiving, money from the ARPA, the federal money, and I know that Pam has inquired with Kate Bush on numerous occasions, about possibly using some of that money for the parks. And on numerous occasions, Kate has told her that parks projects do not qualify, even though I know Pam had shared with her what other communities are doing. And Jenny Schwartz and I have communicated. I thought I saw Jenny earlier, but maybe she's not on anymore. I did see her name a bit ago, who's on the RTM Finance and Budget Committee. But she actually she forwarded me some information that she found about the use of this money and how towns are using it for parks projects and they can fit under the definition. So I will forward all that out to you all as well. And, maybe, as I said, I know Pam has tried and she's not been successful, but maybe, some of us want to dog that a little bit more. I know that the committee to dispense the money has been formed. I'm not sure who the chair is, but we can find that out. And whether it's something we want to think about in terms of at least applying for, making a case for some of the money again or not. I just wanted to toss it out there for people to think about, and I will circulate this information that Jenny so kindly surfaced for us, because that was really, really helpful. But Jim and Jamie, I think that's your understanding too, that Pam really tried. And I saw the correspondence, and she really tried, and she really got shut down pretty. The door was shut. It was shut. So at least on Pam, and she reports to Kate. So at some point that becomes, tricky when your boss tells you no numerous times. So, anyway, Adele, did you want to say something?
I just was going to add that John Zagrodzky is chairman of the committee.
He is the chairman. Okay. Great. All right. So I can reach out to him as well.
The first,
so I did
first thing I thought about was sand at Pear Tree that got destroyed, but when I read this small print, I don't think it qualified, but hey, we should keep trying.
Yeah, I'll forward this. Jenny was terrific, and it cites specific sections of the regulation, specific pages, but then there's this one article that was written by somebody in Pennsylvania about how they were doing it. And as I said, I know Pam has, found some examples of other communities, I think in Connecticut, that are, planning to use some of that money. So I think this is something else that we should, pursue a little bit to maybe find some funding for, one or more of our, projects. It can't hurt to ask. So I think we'll just keep asking. Okay. So that is really all I had for this evening. So I lost it, but the last item on the agenda would be if anybody wanted to propose going to new business for any reason. So, no. Oh, the other thing I did want to mention is we do have a candidate to fill the open slot from caused by Tier resigning, and I never like to name names until it's over. But I have a feeling it should move along in fairly short time frame, which will be great because there's a lot of work to be done, and having a vacancy for a long time period is not great. So I'm very hopeful that will happen in very, very short order, but I never like to jinx things. That's just where I am. So, okay. So any need for new business? No. Okay. Then we'll take a motion to adjourn and maybe get it done a little bit earlier this evening. So, okay. Can I have a motion? Tara. Thank you. Susan?
Sarah,
I'll
Susan.
second, or anybody.
I'll do it.
Lori,
Yeah.
Sarah,
Yes.
Mary Louise,
Yes.
Janet,
Janet's on mute.
Janet, don't leave us. We're so close.
Janet, we can't stop unless you vote. Uh-oh, she's bubbling. Just nod, Janet. Just nod yes.
Can we go? That was close enough.
I think we're going to go with that close enough.
Last but not least, Kathy.
Yes.
That's everybody.
Okay. All right, everybody. It was good seeing you all. Mark your calendars for January 7th and get ready for a very technical presentation on sediment quality.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'll see you all then.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Okay.
you.
Good night.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, Jim. You did a great job.